Hey, what's up? It's Swamp. Back for another tutorial. Okay, and this one I'm going to do is animate a car. I'm going to have it come up over that hill and drive down the road and come straight through and then have it loop. And it's going to be a sequence of curved data sources going and stuff, so that's why it's kind of weird making a loop. It's just not just looping a curved data source. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need is an impulse trigger. Interval trigger. Okay, and set that to 1. All right, and then we need an object position event. This is going to tell the car where to be. And then we need a curved data source. And this is going to move the car. Okay, so now, curved data source. I've done this before, so I set the numbers all up. So I'm just going to put in the numbers that I set up before. That all match up, so you don't have to sit there and watch me try to figure it out. But otherwise, so what we're doing is moving 280 meters forward, and it's taking 255 ticks to move that. Okay, so now we're going to set the interval to 1 tick every frame, and the filter's going to go to the object position event. Now the object position event, we're going to set the position X to be the curved data source by picking value object. And then we're going to go down here, and the event target is going to be the car, which I put down here on the back side of this hill. And that's all we need right now. Okay, so now let's see what we have so far. So the car moves forward, but we need to have it curve and come up over the hill. So what we're going to do is use another curved data source. Now this curved data source we're going to set to 20 degrees, or 20, and that's going to be the degrees of rotation. So 20, and I want that to take 31 ticks. And these are numbers, like I said, these numbers I have from working it out earlier, so you guys don't have to watch me try to figure it out. Okay, and then what we're going to do is yaw. No, I'm sorry. This is bank. This one is bank. So we're going to bank the car, and it's going to turn and come up over the hill. See, like that. And you see it's not quite turned enough. So let's try 21. So 21 degrees would be a little bit further of a bank. And that looks like that's too much. So what we're going to have to do is get in between 20 and 21. And so how you do that is you grab a variable data source. So grab a variable data source. Put it right here. And so what I worked out earlier was 20.6. So I'm going to put in 20.60. Okay, and then you go to your linear curved data source, and you set your end by picking the value object. You set that to 20.6. And so now that should curve and stay on the road pretty well. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to set up a state event to turn this on. So let's go to event filters, events, and grab a state event. Now this state event is going to be set to on, and its event targets are going to be the interval trigger, the object position event, and the 2 curved data sources. And now what we're going to need to do is turn these off. So we turn off the object position event and the interval trigger, and then you turn off the curved data sources by clicking the enabled button. That turns them off. Now what we need to do is send a trigger to an interval impulse to the state event. So I'm going to set this to disable after 1 count and send it to the state event to turn that on. So it's still going to do the same thing that it did before, just turns it on and does the loop 1 time and then stops. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to make this loop. So there's a few things we have to do. First step is we need to actually figure out where the car is so we can, because if you loop this, if you just set this to loop, it would just continue driving the car. It wouldn't set the car back to where it was. So in the beginning. So what we have to do is we have to record where the car is in the beginning and then set it there and then play this animation and then set it back to the beginning and then play the animation. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So, all right, so first we need to get where the car is. So we're going to grab vector object info. And what that's going to do is that's going to tell us where the car is. So we select the car as the object, And now you see that'll give us the X, Y, and Z positions in the world of the car. And so what we're going to also need is the rotation and the angle of the car. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to set this to angle and use that. Now, what we need to do is, I've had the best luck with using variables for the angle. So I'm going to set these variables right here to these numbers, 265, 179, and 159. So, okay. So now got these set. So now what we're going to do is we're going to need a vector to hold the position of the car. So we're going to grab a vector under data sources, grab a vector, place it here. Okay, and now we need to set the position of the vector. Excuse me. We need to set the position of the vector and the angle of the car and all that. So what we're going to use is set vector. And so what set vector is going to do is it's going to set this vector up. So we're going to use these values. X value is going to be the position, Y value position, and Z value is going to be position. The event target is going to be the vector. Okay, so now what we need is, I'm just going to go ahead and set up the delay and stuff for the loop. So we need to grab a delay filter, and we need to grab a variable because we're going to change the amount of delay every time. So we're going to grab a variable, and that's going to be set to delay ticks. Okay, so this is set value. This we're just using as reference. Okay, so now we need to put in a set value event here for that variable for the delay. Then we need a random data source. Sorry, this is so like mixed up. I'm just kind of going as I go. So, all right. So what we're going to do is this delay is going to be set to a random value. So we're going to set value is going to be the value is going to be the random data source. The event target is going to be this variable. Now the random data source we want to set up as between 0 and say 100. And then I'm going to make it just one tick so it's changing all the time. So now what this is going to do, this is going to set this vector, and this is going to set this variable. Now what we need is an object position event to place the car where we want it to be. So we grab an object position event, set it here. We're going to set the world coordinates by turning off local. The X position is going to be the vector, Y position is going to be the vector, and the Z position is going to be the vector. The turn off local and the angle, the yaw is going to be that variable, pitch is going to be that variable, and bank is going to be that variable. Okay, so what we have is all the coordinates for the car are set to this object position event. And so we need to set its event target is going to be the car. Okay, so now to start all this, we're going to use this interval trigger like we started it before, but we're going to start up here. We're going to start by, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to set that vector. So that vector is going to be set to the value of where the car is. Then we're going to set the value of the delay for the loop. Now this is going to be the loop. We're going to use this in a little bit, but I just set it up right now. Okay, now after we set that value, then we want to set the car to where it was in the first place. Then after we set the car to where it was, then we can start the animation of animating the car. So we'll do that. Okay, so now the animation of the car lasts 255 ticks. So we're going to grab a delay filter and put that in. And we're going to set that to 255. Because that's going to be how long it takes the car to drive down the street. Okay, so now then we're going to need to turn everything off. Because what we're going to do is reset everything. So we turn everything off. So we go from the on event to the delay. It waits for the animation to be done. And then it turns everything off. Now, on all this stuff, we need to set it so it will reset on checkpoint. So, reset when enabled. Actually, for this one, this impulse trigger, interval trigger is reset when disabled, enabled. The object position event is reset when disabled. So set those. The curve data source, reset when disabled. Okay, so now we need to go from here on this delay, from this off position to a delay. I'm going to wait until however many ticks that is, which the delay ticks, I'm going to set those to be this variable, which is going to be this random data source, which will be 66. Then from this delay, I'm going to go back to reset that delay ticks amount. And then we're going to set the car back to the beginning, and then it's going to start the animation over, wait for it to be done, reset it, wait for a random time, set the random time to a new random time, set the car back to the beginning, and start over again. So it's a big loop. So let me show you how it works. So it loops, resets the car, and it comes back, and it loops again. So it just makes an endless loop of the car doing this driving down the road. Now, I tell you what, let's do. Now I want to do a couple of cool things. First thing let's do is let's make the car randomly turn right down that street right there. So, like I said, I've done this before, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you the numbers and stuff and show you how to do it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need another random data source. So we're going to grab another random data source up here, and this is going to decide whether it turns right or not. Then we're going to get a filter. We're going to grab a generic filter, and this generic filter is going to do is it's going to compare this value to 500, and the random data source is going 0 to 1000. So I'm going to go 500. If it's greater than 500, then I'm going to want to do the turn. So, all right, so now what we need to do, we need to set up a turn. So we're going to grab another curve data source, copy this down here. We're going to set it to 59. Like I said, I did this before. Set this to 46. Now this is just going to be an amount of turn that it takes. It takes that turn. It's going to turn 59 degrees. It's going to take 46 ticks. Now another thing I want to do is I want to set this to be quadratic ease in out. Okay, so now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to turn this on at a certain time after it gets down the street some, because it's not, we don't want it to turn immediately. So we're going to want it to turn after it gets down the street. So we're going to use an on event, on state event. So we reset that and just set it to be on the curve data source that's going to be the turn. Now we go back to the object position event, and that turn is going to be yaw this time. We set that to the quadratic ease in out that's going to turn 59 degrees, curve data source. Make sure it's turned off. Okay, so now this on event, we're going to set it to go to this delay here. I copied that delay there because we have 255 on this, and we need to wait for actually 93 before we decide whether to turn or not. So it's going to go to that filter here. So we're going to turn it on. It's going to wait 93 ticks, which is the car's going to be right there at that corner. And then it's going to decide whether it turns. So if that value, the random value, is greater than 500, then yes, it's going to turn. We're going to go to the on event. If no, it doesn't want to turn. If it's less than, then we're going to go to this delayed impulse, which is going to continue the 255 from the 93, which is going to be 162. So we go 162 clicks here and 93 here, which equals 255, which is the total length of the driving duration, 255. Okay, so what this does now is this decides whether to turn right or not randomly. If it does turn right, then it turns right, and then it goes and waits another 162 ticks before it turns it off. Now what we need to make sure and do is turn off this new curve data source. You have to turn everything off and make sure the new curve data source is set to reset when disabled. Okay, so now let's try this. So with the car drive down and it turns because it selected that number to be less than 255, and it goes straight this time. So you see it just selects randomly whether to turn or not. Sometimes it goes straight, sometimes it turns, and it just kind of makes it a little bit more fun as far as just the random traffic thing. Okay, so now let me show you how to put some sound in with this. So let's grab the a sound. So they have sounds for race cars, so let me grab one real quick. Sound source, and I believe it's under motors. Race car pass by. So we'll set this to like maybe 150 or so, and put it right down here close to where it'll be close to kind of the camera when you ride by. Have this kind of be close to the camera. Okay, and then I want one over here when the car drives by over here. I'm going to turn this down to about 70 or so. So set the volume around 70. Okay, so now we need sound events. So we're going to go to triggers and events, and grab a sound event. Now this first sound event is going to set the car at that corner. So we're going to just splice it in here in this interval here. So I'm going to select this sound event, and then I'm going to go to this delay here with the filter. We're going to take this filter up to the sound event there and kind of splice it in. You see I just put it in between those. So now it triggers that sound. And now this one, we're going to have this one over here triggered before the delay. So we're going to take this sound source, we're going to delete that line, and we're going to connect it to this one. Then we're going to set this one to this delay here. Then we're going to come from the generic filter on the false event, and we're going to go to the on event on the sounds. So now that adds sounds to these. Now one more thing I think would be fun is to add another sound that they have in here, which is the race car squealing, the tire squealing, making the turn. So we're just going to add that sound to this sound. So add that sound as sound event through the sound event. All right, and let's actually test the track and see what it sounds like. Oh, you know what? Wait, I need to do this. I'm sorry. I need to set the tire squeal over to where it only turns. So we're going to do this. We're going to take this sound event. We're going to unselect the tire squealing. And we're going to put this tire squealing over here. So, and this is going to be the true event. So we're going to go to that on animation to turn on the turn. We're going to come from the true event to the sound event of the tire squealing. So now, when the car turns, it's going to have the sound squealing, the tire squealing, and not when it doesn't turn. Let's turn the sound tire squeal up a little bit. All right, so let's try it again. Okay, so, oh crap, that's why that wasn't working. Okay, so make sure that this is connected to the right sound, and it will work. So, all right, so now that should be fine. And so now let me show you one more thing. It's fun to do. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a vector. Vector under data sources. Put that here. I'm going to grab a set vector event. Set vector event, and we're going to grab 3 more random data sources. I'm going to set these random data sources to be 0 to 255. Okay, and this is going to be 1 tick there. We're going to have 3 of these, so we're going to need to reseed them. So 1, copy it, and then reseed it. Then copy it again and reseed again, because otherwise it'll select the same numbers every time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this set vector event right here in between this. We're going to set the X position, the Y, and the Z to those random data sources, and we're going to set the event filter to go to the set value event there. And we're going to set this delayed impulse is going to go to that set vector. All right, then we're going to need to set the vector. Event target is going to be that vector. Now we're going to set the car. The car's color is going to be equal to that vector. So now what it's going to do is select a random color for the car every time it comes through that loop. So we go to the materials, select event target, and that will be that vector. Okay, so now when the car comes through, it's going to be a random color every time it drives through the loop. It's a different color. And it moves through, and it goes randomly, turns, it goes straight, and so that's how you do it. If you wanted to do more, you could just copy this whole panel of tiles and copy the car at, together, and just put it exactly where that one is, and put a delay in on the start, and you could have 2 cars going at once, or 3, however many you want to. Just make sure you try to keep your numbers in the delay so they don't start overlapping. But otherwise, that's how you do it. Let's do a little test and see how it looks. So you have the cars cruising around, driving through town. So hopefully that helps. That's how you do a random interval loop. Thanks for watching, and have a good time.